Greetings and welcome to a presentation of a sister story by the Adrian Dominican Sisters. And today I'm Sister Peg O'Flynn, and today we're going to have a conversation with our Sister Donna Markham, who presently resides and ministers in Alexandria, Virginia. And so we delight in welcoming you, Donna. She will begin telling us a little bit about her upbringing, and we'll just have a conversation. And we are delighted to have you give us some of your precious time, Donna. So, and Donna was Sister Donna Jean before she went back to her baptismal name. We say that because a lot of our benefactors and people don't know who we are. They know who we were by name only. So, Donna Markham, it's all yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Donna Jean was my baptismal name and still is.
Right. Yeah.
I just dropped the Jean, but thanks, Peg. It's good to be able to share a little bit with you. It's always interesting when you reflect back on your life and say, well, how did I get from there to here, and what does all that mean? And I was just saying to Peg, it's a rather unremarkable childhood. I grew up in Winnetka, Illinois, and the oldest of five. I think the interesting part there is that I grew up in a parish that was, by today's standards, would have been very cutting edge in its day back in the 1950s and 60s. And the pastor there, for example, never had us study the Baltimore Catechism. So when I entered the congregation, and when you're a novice, we had to get those tests about,
right.
Well, I had never seen it before because we had never studied it. And instead we studied scripture, and we had to remember scripture passages. And when we got to about 7th grade, we started studying the social encyclicals of Leo the 13th. And my mom and dad thought that I was turning into a communist. But anyway, that's what we were learning in school. So I came from a background of quite progressive theological and religious upbringing in the elementary school. And then that continued certainly in high school.
Did your siblings as well? They had the same kind of upbringing in that parish?
They did, but my parents moved. So I and the sister next to me in age would have been exposed to this.
Okay.
But then they moved to another parish up further north. So I was the one that really absorbed it. And simple things like going to Mass in the mornings with my dad, and the Mass was done with two priests, one doing the ritual in Latin facing the wall, and another priest facing the people saying things like, the Lord is with you, and we would say, with you too. Now this is like 1957, 56.
Way ahead of time.
Way ahead.
Yeah.
Way ahead. So, but anyway, a very formidable grounding in faith that started young with me, and in a sensitivity to what it meant to be kind of an awakened, alert Catholic, looking at society. What's our role in society? What are we supposed to be about? Not, as people of faith in this culture. So it started early, and then high school at Regina Wilmette certainly was a rich experience for me. And the exposure to the Adrian Dominicans at that time really, and everybody knows Marg Hines. Marg was very instrumental in helping me to enter the congregation. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's known me since I was 13. So
I could have gotten some background on you from her.
You could have gotten a lot of background. Yes. Then following high school, I went to St. Michael's at the University of Toronto in Canada. And that was a compromise because my mother wanted me to go to Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. And my dad wanted me to go to Trinity College in Washington. And
Wow.
I nixed Northwestern because I didn't want to stay home. And I nixed Trinity College in DC because I'd had enough girls' education.
Regina.
So then I proposed that I would go to the University of Toronto if I could get in. And they said, oh yeah, sure, you're not going to get in. And I got in. So
They didn't know that you started your theology back in grade school.
but so then I was at St. Mike's, and that was a very rich time in my life, certainly, with all of the political and social unrest with the Vietnam War, and all the civil rights stuff going on. And it was a very unsettling time. And we had terrific classmates who were all very passionate about wanting to do something to make the world better, and very, very bright, very dedicated young people. It was a extraordinary opportunity to meet a lot of very different kind of people who were and we're still very bonded today as we face our 55th college
Oh, wow.
reunion, next May. So anyway, then after I had been there and completed what would have been the equivalent of 3 years of university, I decided that I would check out. I was between the Peace Corps and the Dominicans. And I thought, well, if I go, I'll try the Dominicans to get it out of my head, because I was thinking about it. And I didn't know how old you had to be in Illinois to make a decision to enter a religious community. So I wrote to Senator Everett Dirksen in Illinois, and I asked him at what age did a young woman attain her majority in the state of Illinois and could make a decision about her life.
Oh, my.
He wrote back and said 18, and I thought, okay, bingo, I was 20. So I informed my parents with a copy of the letter from Everett Dirksen that this is what I was going to do the following year.
Because you didn't think they'd let you do it.
They wouldn't. Oh, no, they would not have. No, they had already nixed that a long time before. But so then.
Are the rest of your siblings like you?
In their own way, yes.
Way. Okay.
Each in their own way, yeah. So then I entered, and Peace Corps never saw me, because I figured, I had options. If I left the Dominicans, I could go back to the university, finish my schooling, and go on to Peace Corps if, but the rest of the story got written, and I ended up certainly loving being an Adrian Dominican, and have continued to love it ever since.
So did you have any other mentors that led you to this decision?
To enter? I had some friends at the University of Toronto, some women religious who were my age, a little older. And I used to talk to them about it, and did they think I was crazy? And two of them were very dear to me, and supported my plan. And the only thing that they said was that they were sorry I wasn't going to enter a Canadian group.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'd really seal the deal in a lovely way if I did that to my parents too, left the country. I said, so we'll just keep it at this. So they helped me, and then I entered the congregation in 1966. Yeah, and that was the beginning of the mass exodus. So we entered with 78 of us in our crowd, and by the time we made first vows, there were, I think, 26 of us.
Wow. Oh, my word. Oh, my.
Yeah, so it was a difficult time, certainly, in religious life. And
the country, right?
In the country, it was very, very unsettling time. So, but somehow, with God's grace and with powers that are much stronger than my own, I remained in the congregation, And it's been just I've had a wonderful life. What do you say? You know,
Mhm.
everything I've done, I maybe wasn't well suited for some of it, but everything I've done, I've enjoyed. So first grade was not my best my best hour, but
Why do you say that?
well, I majored in philosophy and fine art and was sent to teach first grade.
I
So
know, I
I
know.
had no training whatsoever.
None of us did, Donna.
No, no, I know. And one of the a funny story just to share that is that I remember my first day teaching, and I had 52 first graders, and there were 4 first grades, and I had no clue what I was doing, none whatsoever. And it was time to take the kids out for the bathroom break. And I watched the other first grade teacher line them up on the black squares of the black and white tiles, like, and so they wouldn't push each other. So I lined up 8 little girls and 8 little boys, and I sent them all in and thought, okay, I got that down. And all of a sudden, the 8 little boys all came running out and saying to me, "Sister, sister, sister, there's no bathrooms in there, just a bunch of drinking fountains." Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh
Now,
my gosh.
I had no clue what to do with this, so I grabbed a second grader. I said, "Go in there and show them what to do," but oh dear. But that's how unprepared, and it was pretty hilarious. So, and then
Come a long way, baby.
well, and then I taught at Dominican High for a year, uh, taught at elementary school for 2 years and taught at Dominican. And then the community asked me um, to consider studying, and did CPE first, and then went to study at University of Detroit for my master's, and then ultimately my doctorate there. And taught in the major seminary for a while. And
Well, that was an experience back then.
yeah,
It's always an experience, right? Yeah.
was the first woman professor.
Okay.
My students are now all retiring for ministry. And so, yeah, I think I was about 26 or 27, and they were maybe 25. So it was pretty funny. But to this day, they'd stay in touch with me, and
Oh,
actually
that's
some of
nice.
them are going to come and visit this winter. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah, so
That's
now
wonderful.
that they're all retiring, so
Hint, hint, right? Uh-huh.
yeah,
Mhm.
so anyway, and then as you know, because we worked at the Dominican Consultation Center that we established at St. Philomena Parish in the day, and then moved to Dominican High School property, uh, and then I worked also at Sinai Hospital in Detroit in the Department of Psychiatry. And then, as all things happen, I was elected to the General Council. I was in my 30s at the time. I think I was 39 or 38 or 9, and served with Nadine Foley and Linda Bevilacqua, Attracta Kelly, and Sharon Weber. And that was a excellent, excellent experience. It was wonderful to be mentored under Nadine at that time, and to learn from her, and to learn not to be afraid of her. 'Cause she
Oh
was pretty
yeah.
intimidating.
Yeah, right. She's awesome underneath. Yeah.
Really, really,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and then after that, I went to Canada again, and was headhunted to be the president of the South Down Institute up in north of Toronto. And at that time, because I'd spent so much time and connection in Canada, I was eligible at a certain point to become a citizen. So I did become a Canadian citizen as a dual citizen, so I could vote and be involved in the uh, the government civic processes in the where I was living, because I was there for 10 years. So and that was the time of the sex abuse scandals. I did neglect to say that when I was on the general council, I was elected president of LCWR, and that was the time of the first one of the inquisitions on the part of the Vatican when they were establishing the Second Conference of Religious Women in the United States, the CMSWR. And I was president of LCWR and tried to argue why the Vatican shouldn't just simply split religious life, but should take an active role in trying to unify religious life in the United States. And of course, I lost that that battle. And then I walked from that into Southdown, where we had the sex abuse scandal, and started in Newfoundland in Canada and spread quickly throughout North America and then into Europe and across the world. And we treated a lot of clergy who were sexually inappropriate, and some of whom went to prison. And we also had women religious there who had been victims of abuse. And so it was a very, it relied heavily on the clinical expertise of the staff to know how to manage both abusers and victims in the same house. We had about 50 residents at a time. So it was a difficult undertaking for sure. And then after 10 years of that, I was really pretty worn out from it. And all of my colleagues were exhausted from it too, because it was a very dispiriting time in the church for sure. And so from there, I went to Georgetown, was at Georgetown for a year, and then I was elected prioress of the congregation. So that was a much nicer environment to be with our sisters. And
that's nice. It's nice to hear that. Yeah,
I totally love that time. And doing some innovative things in mission in the United States and Canada, North America, English-speaking mission outreach, and engaging our sisters who wanted to have that kind of experience. And that was great, and a lot of fun.
Right up in Canada. The experience with the Inuits, I recall that experience. Can you share a little bit when you did that?
When I was at Southdown, I received a call one day from the federal government of Canada asking if Southdown had clinicians that would be willing to travel to the high Arctic and to help the Inuit people deal with what was becoming a suicide epidemic in the north. And so I talked to my team and said, is anybody willing to go? So we sent, and there were a lot of people on my team that wanted to do some volunteer work up there. So we went up to Igloolik, which is about, if you flew directly north from Toronto, fly about 7 hours, you would hit Igloolik. So you're above the Arctic Circle. And so we had a Hands Across the Snow project where 2 clinicians would go every 12 weeks and spend 2 weeks up there and work with the people, most of whom did not speak English. So we became quite adept in sign language and stick picture drawings and a different kind of forever. But the temperatures were something like minus 40 degrees Celsius. And a heat wave would be if it got above maybe 20 degrees Fahrenheit, to use American scale, but it was very cold. And I was there, I went about 4 times. I was there in each season.
Okay.
And we'd take a psychologist and psychiatrist each time and work with the people. So it was quite an interesting experience to go somewhere where everything was completely unfamiliar. There's no soil, there's no topsoil, there's no vegetation. It's just straight ice as far as you can see. So that people subsist off of sea animals, whales and seals and Arctic char and things like that that is eaten raw, and because there's no heating, there's no wood, and there's no coal. So the people have been accustomed to eating what they say is country food, which is just fresh from the animal to your mouth. And
Okay, I think I know enough about the
there you
Inuit.
go. So there you go.
Something else I recall that if it was at your creativity, but when there was the earthquake out in California,
Yes.
at the consultation center, you sent or you invited some of the staff to go out
Yes.
and help with the
Yes.
recovery out there,
Yeah.
with the counseling, etc.
Yeah, we became Red Cross volunteers from the
That was it.
consultation
Okay.
center, and we actually got deployed to work with our hospital in Santa Cruz.
Okay.
And I asked if we could be placed there because I knew that we would have some spots to stay. Because, when these things happen, all the hotel space gets taken up by first responders that come out there. And so it's very difficult to, whatever the disaster is, to get housing. So that worked out well. And we stayed with some of our sisters out there and did therapy with trauma therapy with the staff in the hospital, and then also with people who had been affected by the earthquake.
Okay. Our time is going to be going out. Not to downplay some of your other ministries. Now you're at Catholic Charities USA. What do you do for fun? What do you do to get away?
Well, I would have to tell you, I don't have much of a life. Fortunately, I love what I do, so that does that certainly makes up for a lot of it. But this work is, I would say, even more intense than being prioress of the congregation. It's so enormous in scope, and so you have to sort of say, well, you get a minute and you get a chance to go out to dinner, or you get a chance to connect with friends. And of course, the pandemic made that even all the more difficult because we couldn't do any of that. So we were all glued to our screens doing the work as best we could from our houses, but it was very difficult. So fun when the movie theaters are closed down and the restaurants are closed and you can't see your friends and you don't,
yeah, well, that was
not a whole lot. Yeah. And
that was a different experience, but in general,
3 years of it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're constantly energized by all the creative things that you're engaged in. But that's a part of you. People want to know, what do you do for fun? You used to ice skate. I remember that.
Oh yeah, remember ice skating? Ice skating with the novices.
Yeah. But what else do you do for fun? Your friends, I know your friends, and going out with your friends is important.
Yeah, that is.
But you who are in charge of psychology and know how important that is to be, what do you do to stay balanced? And don't tell me you're not balanced.
I could say that. Yeah, right. Nuts, right? Anybody that does these drugs is crazy. Clinical diagnosis, nuts. But I would say that much of the is so-called fun. For me is relational. It's about my friends. It's about my friends. I can do anything. I mean, if I can be with friends, I'm happy. Taking a walk or doing something, or very simple. I don't have a big need to be doing all kinds of phantasmagorical things. I'm happy just to connect with people and enjoy time together. That'd be the most energizing for me. Is
there something about you that we would say, oh no, not Donna Markham? Something, something that you can share, maybe, that would surprise us about you, and probably would be something you do other than work.
Well, I think you recall that I built furniture.
That's right. You did.
We had a whole army of sisters that we organized at Dominican Convent to build furniture for the community room in the day, and just, funny stuff like that.
How you relax, you keep doing things.
Yeah, well, and have fun
Different.
with it, just laughing with it. What do we know about building furniture? Well, let's figure it out and try. So I don't know. I mean,
So if we get a phone call from Donna, we should say, "Oh my gosh, what does she want for us to do now?"
no, but that was always a joke when I was at Southdown, because my staff would always say to me, "Oh dear, she's going to give another talk somewhere. That means she's going to be alone on an airplane.
Oh, she can think.
She's going to think up more stuff that we should figure out how we can fix the program and make it better." And so I come back and I share this. I had no idea I was doing that, but then later they told me, "Oh, every time you went away, we were dreading when you come back because you had too much alone time and you think up all this stuff."
Oh God, that is neat. What are you most passionate about? That's a silly question after all you just said.
Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about life.
Life.
I was as I have said to my board, as I come to announcing the end of this service, that I wish that God could magically make me 20 years younger, because I love what I do. I have really good energy. Fortunately, I think my mind still works. But the calendar doesn't lie. And there comes a time when you have to say, well, you have to pass the torch on to somebody else to pick up the reins. But I've just loved what I've done. I loved being prioress. I loved being president of Catholic Charities. I loved being at the Dominican Consultation Center. I loved it.
And did you love those little first and second graders?
I did.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, one of them came up to me one time at the airport and said, very sheepishly, he was an adult man, and he looked at me and said, "Excuse me, did you ever teach at St. Jude's School?" I said, yeah. He said, "You wouldn't happen to be Sister Donna Jean, would you?"
Oh my gosh.
I said, "Well, that would be me." And I said, "Who are you?" And he told me his name, and I said, "Oh my God." He says, "You taught me in first grade." I said, "What do you do now?" And he said, "I'm a physician at Henry Ford Hospital." And I said, "Can you read?"
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, that's precious.
But I think I think God put me in the right place by having me become an Adrian Dominican and be exposed to such extraordinary women in our congregation, and be opened in freeing me to live my life to the fullest, and not in any way try to block who I was and who I am. And that's a real gift, because not every religious community would be able to do that. Yeah. So that's a wonderful gift that the congregation has given to me.
Right. And know that we're praying for your sister. You had asked us to pray for your sister, so I hope she's doing better. So, well, Donna, thank you ever so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I've been meaning to get you, and I keep thinking, oh, she's kind of busy. Well, I thought, just ask her. So invite her. Yeah.
Well, listen, blessings.
What?
Blessings on all you do. And
well, thank you very much. And I like, whatever I do. And you'll know when it's time to move on. And I think that's a gift. We all have to pray for each other. There comes a time to be totally involved and a time to step aside. Right. And you have done that graciously in all the ministries that you've been involved in. So thank you for not going to the Peace Corps, for going to the Adrian Dominicans, and for all the ways that you have preached to so many of us. So God bless you, and know that you'll be in our prayers as you step aside once they get someone to take not your place, your position at Catholic Charities.